always be in your side.
A famous personality, known for his long history of supporting the Palestinian cause, is actor Liam Cunningham, who is also known for his role in Game of Thrones. Yesterday, in a press conference, he said that the flotilla is an indication that the world has failed to uphold humanitarian law.
What sort of a world have we slid into? What sort of a human hole have we found ourselves in when children, beautiful angels that are 5 or 6 years old, are making their own funeral arrangements? Where does that leave us? How are our children and our grandchildren going to look back at this horrific episode in the existence of our species? And the end of that story, I'll keep it brief. 4 days ago, Fatima was killed. She was killed by the Israelis. Somebody is going to be singing that song over that child's corpse. That's why I'm at this table. And that's why the flotilla is important. And Western governments should have made these boats unnecessary to be making this trip. And the fact that you guys are here and the flotilla is happening is an indication of the world's failure to uphold international law and humanitarian law. And it is a shameful, shameful period in the history of our world. And we should be collectively ashamed, and we need to get up and stop this as soon as we possibly can.
The global Samud flotilla will be the fourth attempt to break the illegal maritime blockade so far this year. It is the largest attempt yet to break the long-standing Israeli blockade of the Palestinian territory by sea.
And now the executive director of the World Food Programme, Cindy McCain, has stated that the Zionist military operation in Gaza would complicate the delivery of humanitarian aid, aggravating the humanitarian crisis and threatening to further deteriorate the situation. In a press release, he stressed that the current situation in the Gaza Strip was dangerous, insisting on the urgency of delivering humanitarian aid to meet the needs of the population. She declared that the Gaza Strip, ravaged by genocidal Zionist aggression and where the UN has officially declared famine, has reached a breaking point. The head of the Rome-based UN agency said that she had met children who were dying of hunger and receiving treatment for severe malnutrition, adding that when she saw photos of them in good health, they were unrecognizable. She stressed that despair was at its peak and that she had witnessed it directly. She visited Deir al-Balah and Khan Yunis, where she met malnourished children and displaced mothers. She emphasized the urgent need to restore food distribution points, kitchens and bakeries in Gaza to support the most vulnerable and save lives. And now mass demonstrations in Buenos Aires and Venice have denounced the ongoing genocide in Gaza as protesters and artists alike raised Palestinian flags, called for justice and urged global attention to the plight of the Palestinian people. Thousands in Buenos Aires, led by the Argentine Committee of Solidarity with the Palestinian People, demonstrated against the ongoing genocide in Gaza and rejected the Argentine government's invitation to so-called Netanyahu. Participants waved Palestinian and Argentine flags, carried banners condemning Zionist crimes, and called for international prosecution of its leaders. In Venice, several thousand people marched during the 82nd Film Festival to denounce Zionist crimes in Gaza, organized by local left-wing groups. The protest called for a boycott of the Zionist entity and an end to the genocide, with chants of Free Palestine and widespread Palestinian flags. And to Sudan now, at least 19 people have been killed and dozens wounded in airstrikes in Darfur, Western Sudan. Mr. Shafi has the details.
These strikes were carried out by the Rapid Support Forces RSF in El Fasher, the capital of North Darfur state besieged. At least 71 were wounded, and the death toll could be higher as it only concerns victims admitted to the facility. El Fasher Hospital said among the wounded, mainly hit by shrapnel, 22 are in critical condition. The RSF have been besieging El Fasher, the last major city in Darfur, still held by the army since May 2024. El Fasher, threatened by famine, is now virtually virtually cut off from the world without humanitarian aid. In recent weeks, witnesses, volunteers and aid workers have described an intensification of attacks with incessant bombing, looting and growing insecurity. Many residents are digging trenches to protect themselves from shells and stray bullets. Others are attempting to flee the city. For the UN, El Fasher has become the epicenter of children's suffering, cut off from the world and without humanitarian aid. The war in Sudan has killed tens of thousands and displaced millions, plunging the country into what the UN calls the world's worst humanitarian crisis.
In Afghanistan, 812 people have been killed and more than 2,500 others wounded in a 6-magnitude earthquake. The earthquake at midnight local time was centered 27 kilometers northeast of the city of Jalalabad in Nangarhar province. It was just 8 kilometers deep. Shallower quakes tend to cause more damages, local sources said. The quake razed the villages in the eastern provinces of Kunar and Nangarhar. Official sources provided the latest figures at a press conference in the capital, Kabul. Rescue operations are still underway there and several villages have been completely destroyed. The figures for victims and injured are changing. Medical teams said many areas had not been able to report casualties figures and that the numbers were expected to change as death and injuries are reported. Most of Jalalabad's buildings are low-rise constructions, mostly of concrete and brick, and its outlying areas include homes built of mud, bricks and wood. Afghanistan is prone to deadly earthquakes, particularly in the Hindu Kush mountain range, where the Indian and Eurasian tectonic plates meet. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. That's it for our news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to a cultural program.
The Beni Hamad Qal'a or fortress. At the beginning of the 10th century of the 4th of Hijra, a man called Ubaydullah al-Mahdi, and declaring himself as a descendant of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, conquered most of the great Maghreb or North Africa region and founded the Fatimid dynasty. The Fatimids dominated the region from Tripoli eastward to Tlemcen westward, with Qayrawan today as their capital. Around 925 AD, as the Fatimids' ambition to conquer Egypt and the Middle East, they handed over some of their powers in the Maghreb region to local dignitaries. One of them was Ziri ibn Manad, the chief of the Sanhaja tribe, who was in control of the Mitija and Titri mounts in central North Algeria. The ever-growing influence and power of the Sanhaja across the Maghreb, with notably the founding of the Ziri dynasty by Bulughine ibn Ziri, caused deadly struggles for power among the Bulughine descendants, with the emergence of Hamad ibn Bulughine as the legal heir defendant. He was later in charge of controlling the western part of the Ziri Emirate and combating the Zenata loyal to Cordoba Caliphate. To assert his supremacy in the western region and prevent any other attack, Hamad erected in 1008 the Qal'a, or fortress. The fortress, which has been part of UNESCO's World Heritage since 1980, is located in the present eastern city of Msila, and more precisely in a well-known site there called Qal'a Abi Tawil, on the southern slope of the Ma'adid Jebel or mountain, and protected in the north by Taqibut Jebel or mountain, which culminates at more than 1,400 meters high. In the west, the Qal'a is protected by the 1,190-meter-high Gurain Mount. The depth of the valley and its wad or river Fraj gives it a strategic position to control the central part of the high plateau or highlands, which are rich agricultural and cattle region, but above all, it was upon one of the main strategic roads linking the central Maghreb and Ifriqiya to Bilad al-Sudan or the Sudan country, from where gold and slaves were brought.